Hi there, I'm Lacey with School of Realist Art, and I'm here today with a simple set of supplies if you want to get started oil painting or if you want to give an oil painting set to somebody as a gift. I'm going to save the oil paints for last, and I'm going to give you a couple of options of what you could pick up in terms of colors. So let's go ahead and just get started here with the brushes. These brushes are a set of inexpensive brushes that I have been purchasing off Amazon. I do think that once you get into oil painting, you want to look for brushes that are a little bit more specialized to the way that you like to paint. There are all kinds of fancy brushes that I absolutely love to use, but these work really great as a workhorse brush, and it's what I use with all of my students in my beginning and intermediate oil painting classes. So I want to say that this set is somewhere around $10. So I'm going to show you here why I use these brushes so that you can look for brushes on your own, or you can go ahead and purchase the same ones that I got through the link in the description. So what we're looking for here in kind of an all-purpose brush is we want a synthetic hair. This is going to make it easier to clean. It also tends to be nice and soft to the touch, so they're not scratchy like bristle brushes, and they're also not crazy expensive and difficult to find like sable brushes. It is synthetic, it's soft to the touch, but it's springy, so it bounces back when you pull on it. We don't want a floppy brush. That's something you might use with watercolor because you're picking up water in a very liquidy substance. We need something that is going to be able to scoop up paint and just have a little bit more firmness to it. So a nice pert synthetic is what we're looking for, and I personally like to get a bunch of different sizes of this shape, which is called a filbert. A filbert is wide in one direction, it's flat in the other direction, and then it has a little bit of an arch at the top. So this is just really an all-purpose brush. You can blend with it, you can get soft edges, you can kind of draw with it sideways and get a thin line and chisel in places. It's just really a great all-around brush, so I just recommend getting this in some smaller sizes and some bigger sizes, just so that you have all those different shapes that you want to fill in covered. Then you're going to need somewhere to put your paint and mix paint together while you're working. And I love wooden palettes and melamine palettes, but it's really nice for beginners to start off with a disposable palette while you're learning how to take care of your palette, and maybe also when you're not in a position that you're painting every day. This is just a really great option. I like this Gray Matters palette because it's a nice neutral gray color, and that just really helps because when you're mixing all your colors on white and then you're applying it to a canvas that has a bunch of paint on it, it can be difficult on that white palette to understand what color you're really mixing. So the gray helps with that. And then when you're done painting, you just tear off the sheet and throw it away. One of the things that I get asked about all the time is mediums and cleaning paint brushes. Do I need mineral spirits? Do I need all these different mediums? The truth is that no, you actually don't need any mediums at all. You can just paint with plain oil paint, and that's going to be completely fine. However, I do recommend having a couple of things on hand that I find really helpful. First of all is Gamsol or mineral spirits. Gamsol is just a brand of odorless mineral spirits. This can be used for cleaning your brushes, although I don't personally use it to clean my brushes. But what I do use it for is to get a kind of first layer on really quickly. This on the first layer of an oil painting can help the paint spread out. It can help you to tone a canvas and just makes the paint flow around a little better because it's a bit pasty out of the tube. That being said, this is something that you don't want to breathe in too much, so you want to keep the use of this to a minimum. It can actually be probably the best for your health to avoid using it altogether, but it's really a good option for that first layer. I won't be going into all the details here of fat over lean, but suffice to say that you should only use this on the first layer. Don't use it on any layer after that. After that, switch to plain paint or using a medium. When you're just getting started with painting, I recommend that you pick up a simple linseed oil. Linseed oil is what is probably already in your paint tube. It's the most common vehicle for oil paint, so you're just adding more of what's already in the paint. My recommendation is to save getting a whole bunch of other mediums until later. When you know how it feels to work with the oil, then you'll be able to see some of the differences. You don't really need this much linseed oil. This is just the size that I have on hand. Just a small amount of the mineral spirits and a small amount of oil is going to get you started. So get the smallest bottle that you can find, and this is something that you can add after that first layer when you want the paint to spread out a little bit better than it is out of the tube. I personally like to use mineral spirits on the first layer, plain paint for the second layer, and then add some oil on the third layer and beyond. Really quickly, I'm going to talk about a couple other things that you're going to need. One is, since I don't like to use the mineral spirits to clean my brushes, I just use a bar of soap. I would grab a bar of Ivory, that's my preferred soap of choice. Irish Spring works as well, and I like it because I can lather the brush directly into the bar of soap instead of using my hands to lather it. I do lather it a bit at the end, but by that point it's mostly cleaned out. You'll also want to have some paper towels on hand or some old rags if you have old t-shirts that you can cut up, just something to wipe the paint off of the brushes as you're working. Now let's talk about some options for painting surfaces. There are really so many options, I couldn't even get into it here. These are a couple ideas, especially for beginners who are going to be experimenting. One is, this is a very inexpensive cut edge canvas panel. So this is made by Fredericks, but this is basically a piece of canvas that's been primed. It's been glued onto a chipboard. You know, this is something that is inexpensive. This is not super archival, but it's definitely fine for somebody who's doing some experiments and beginning to learn to paint. I still use this when I'm doing sketches, something that I'm not planning to send to a gallery and display. I will definitely take this outside and do some sketching with it. So it's a good material to learn on. If you want to take a step up from there, there are these lovely panels, again by Fredericks, and you can get them in different colors. So they make them in white, but I love this color, that it's a tan color. They also have a gray color that I really like. It looks a bit nicer on the back. It's a little bit more stable. It's not quite as flimsy. So this is definitely a better product and can be really nice for creating some initial oil paintings on. Another thing that I really like are canvas pads, and I want to make a separation between canvas pads and canvas paper. For the most part, when I've seen my students get canvas paper, it's been a disaster. It absorbs the oil, they can't spread anything around, so just do not buy canvas paper for the most part. Canvas pads, however, I really love, and what a canvas pad is literally a pad, like a booklet of primed canvas. So it's actual fabric, it's not paper. This is fabric, the same thing that you would find on a stretched canvas. It's just been cut into sheets and then primed for oil painting. So I really like these, highly recommend those. And should you do a masterpiece on these, you can easily mount it on an archival surface and frame it. Really good stuff. And then along the same lines as before, Fredericks also makes this Canvatone paper, which is pretty fun. So you can get a pad of this and it's multicolored. They've got that brown color, the gray color, a green, and kind of a peach. So I really love these as well. It's nice just to start with the white of the canvas already gone, get some interesting colors in there that might show through the painting. I really enjoy this product. And again, this is not paper. This is a canvas sheet that has been primed and ready for painting. Now that we have all those other materials out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about oil paint itself. First of all, I don't care if you've never painted before or if you've been painting for years, I strongly recommend getting artist quality materials. It makes a really big difference. If you get one of those like $5 sets from the craft store it's gonna just be full of liquid and oil and not have very much pigment in it. And you're going to feel like you can't paint. Like there's something wrong with you. People make amazing oil paintings and you're just not able to do it, but it's not you. It's because it's super cheap paint that is really nothing like actual oil paint. You don't have to buy the most expensive brand at all. You can go to the least expensive artist grade oil paint and you're gonna be just fine. It's gonna be a quality product. You know, when something is something that you don't need to spend the money on, I'm gonna let you know that. So with the brushes, you don't need to buy the expensive brand. I'm happy to recommend the brushes off Amazon, but when it comes to the actual paint itself, you really need quality, professional artist oil paint. Some brands that I recommend are Winsor & Newton Artist Oil Colors, Gamblin Oil Colors. I recommend Rembrandt Oil Colors. Those are all relatively affordable. I also recommend the Utrecht Professional line. I don't necessarily recommend their student grade line, but their professional line is pretty good. And there are definitely many other brands that you can choose from, but those are a few that I find to be relatively affordable. Now, just to start off, you're definitely going to want black and white. Mostly I recommend titanium white as your white because it's nice and powerful and archival, doesn't contain any lead, and ivory black as the black. Those are just the ones that I use most of the time, and I find them pretty useful regardless of the subject that you're painting. Now after that, we have a few different options. For the most part, if you have a red, a yellow, and a blue, you're going to be totally fine. There is this rumor that if you have red, yellow, and blue, you can make every single color in the world, but that's not actually true. You can make some colors, and it depends on what yellow, red, and blue that you get. So I'm gonna give you a couple options here for different palettes based on red, yellow, and blue, and then I'm gonna tell you if you want every color that is probably gonna cover everything you'll ever need, maybe not every paint you'll ever want, but every paint that you will practically in any situation need, I'll let you know that too. So if you're a beginning oil painter and you're concerned about being able to control your mixtures, if you're somebody who's probably going to be painting natural things, like you're going to be painting landscapes outside or you're going to be painting portraits, then I recommend this palette, which is Ultramarine Blue, Cadmium Yellow, and Cadmium Red. So definitely this is not a palette that you can paint everything in the world. If you're trying to paint things that are magenta or turquoise or really intense colors, this might not do it for you. But this is going to really give you anything that you need to create a natural looking painting, and it's going to be relatively easy to control. And so relatively is the key. Like, controlling color is still a little challenging, but compared to the other palette that I'm going to tell you about next, it's just easier to keep everything a little bit more balanced. If with the cadmiums you are looking for your paint and you find cadmium red hue or cadmium yellow hue, that's totally fine so long as you are working with artist grade oil paints and not student grade paints. And basically what that means is when they say hue, instead of using the pigment that normally you find in this paint, so instead of using cadmium, they use another kind of pigment. The reason is because cadmium is very expensive. It's also poisonous if you eat it or get it into your bloodstream. So that is an alternative if you're concerned that you might eat some of the paint and you don't want heavy metal poisoning, or if you want to save some money, it's totally fine to go ahead and get the hue, especially when you're just beginning oil painting. Now, my other recommendation is going to be something that's more like what your printer uses. So we would still have the cadmium yellow, and then we have a Quinacridone Rose and a Phthalo blue or a Phthalo turquoise. This is going to give you a much wider gamut of the colors that you can get. You'll be able to get a turquoise, you'll be able to get a magenta, you'll be able to get stronger purples than with the last palette. And so this is really great if you're studying color theory or you want to create more electric, colorful types of paintings. One more tube of paint to throw in there is this burnt sienna. Burnt sienna, I just recommend in general. It's a really inexpensive pigment, and it's super versatile. So it just combines really beautifully with ultramarine blue. You can create a whole painting with ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and white. It'll be fantastic. It's really nice if you're painting skin tones. It can make a pretty good base for that. So it's just a really great, versatile paint, and you can also tone your canvases with it, which is nice. So it's definitely not something that you need, but it's just up there in the list of colors that I recommend. So the options here for palettes are to have black and white, ultramarine blue, cadmium red, and cadmium yellow, or to have black and white, phthalo blue or phthalo turquoise, quinacridone rose. Add the burnt sienna to either of those palettes just because it's handy and useful, or if you have all of these colors, you're pretty much going to be set with anything that you need to paint. Now, if you want to take it a step further, you can go to schoolofrealistart.com and check out my Foundations of Oil Painting class. This is something that you can take yourself online, you can take with me in person, or you can buy it as a gift, and you will have online access to the video course for a lifetime. It's perfect for somebody who is just trying to learn to oil paint, or somebody who has been oil painting but is maybe feeling like they're doing it wrong. So if you are in that category that you want to learn oil painting, or you want to make sure that you're doing it the right way, or learn to create more realism and depth, check out that course, Foundations of Oil Painting, at schoolofrealistart.com. So I want to thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about these materials or anything about oil painting in general, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Give me a like if you found this useful, and please subscribe so that you are notified of future videos. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.